Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Snap Decisions. I am your host with the most, the nighttime DJ for Marvel Snap, and I have an awesome guest with me tonight. It is Nerfherder. Nerfherder, welcome to the show, man. I'm so glad you're aboard. And I've heard you on the a lot of other podcasts. I heard you on with the guys from the Kids Snap a couple of times as well. So welcome in, man. I'm really glad you can be here with me tonight.
No, not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. The first thing I got to ask you, dude, the name. Are you a Star Wars fan? I mean,
No,
or are you just
clearly?
I'm okay. Then we've got a lot to talk about anyway, because me too. I grew up with it. I saw the original back in 1977 with my dad when it first came out.
Right on.
And so I've been hooked on it ever since. Growing up with the action figures and all the toys and all that good stuff. And I mean, well, you know what? I'm going to get you. And I know this is not about Marvel Snap, but hey, people can listen to it anyway. What do you think about the franchise now? I'm just curious as another fan, because there's so many people who, they're like, the sequel movies really kind of turn them off. Especially like the second and the third one. And now, you got the stuff on Disney Plus that they're doing and everything. And some of it's good, some of it not so good. But I mean, what do you think about it now? Just coming from another Star Wars fan.
Sure. Yeah. So just so you know, like I was born in '84, and the original trilogy was, how kids always watch like the same movie on repeat when they're like 8 years old.
Yes.
The original trilogy was that for me.
Yep.
And so to answer your question about like how I feel about the franchise in general is when I was younger, I was more picky and annoying about stuff like this, where I was like, oh, that sucks. It's not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And now that I'm older, and my opinion in Marvel Snap is sort of the same, just in general, is I am not annoyed by much of anything. I just take things for what they are, and they're fun to me. So like all these people, that are like super diehard Star Wars fans get annoyed at the new movies, and they're like, oh, it's just a redo of A New Hope, whatever it is. None of that bothers me. All I care about is, did I have fun going to see the movie, and was I happy? I don't know. I just don't nitpick like, oh, well, they didn't do this justice and that character isn't how he really was. And I'm like, you know what? I don't, even if you're right, I don't care. I enjoyed it. I smiled during the movie, and I'm happy. I don't have time in my life to like nitpick every detail about every franchise that I'm into. So that's my general opinion about Star Wars, and also about like Marvel Snap and meta games and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't care. I'm having fun. I'm here for it.
Man, I love that. It's and when the first one, I forget that the first one of the sequel trilogy came out, I absolutely loved it, dude. Like, I know so many people complained and moaned, oh, it's too much. I had a blast watching that. And the end of it, when she walked up that mountain and Luke's up there, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever.
It was cool.
I loved it, man. I thought it was fantastic. But that's it. I love the point, because I think, just as and you see it a lot on social media, which, I mean, social media is just, it can be garbage a lot of the times, but
it's a dumpster fire.
Yeah, it really is, especially Twitter. Twitter is the worst. But it's, you just see it, like, it just seems like everybody wants to take something, whether it be, like you were saying, whether it be a movie franchise, whether it be a game like Snap, and just complain about it constantly. And again, I'm getting up in that age now too, where I'm like, I'm in my mid 50s, man. There's not a lot that gets to me anymore. And if it is, it's something important. That it's like, it's not going to be a card game that I play on a phone, and it's not going to be, like you said, like a movie. So, man, I love that. That's amazing. What's your favorite one? I got to ask you, what's your favorite Star Wars?
I mean, the default answer is Empire Strikes Back, but honestly, it might be Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
That used to be, the hated one if you were like a super nerd back in the day, but I don't know, it's a fun one. I'm partial to it.
Well, that would make sense, because I mean, you said you were born around that time, so Return of the Jedi was the last one to come out.
Right, that was the newest to me.
Yeah. Now that makes a lot of sense. I love Jedi. I thought Jedi was fantastic.
The newest to me point actually brings up why I think we should stop being snooty about everything, is because there are 22, 24-year-olds who feel the same way about Phantom Menace as we feel about the old Star Wars, and they were kids when they first saw it. So to shit on them for their, I'm sorry, am I allowed to cuss?
No, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So to shit on them and their tastes and their opinions, and saying that wasn't really Star Wars, blah blah blah, you're an asshole. Stop it.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. And it's, I would feel that I got to go to a convention once. I went to, I think it was Star Wars Celebration 2. We went to Indianapolis, a friend of mine and I, and you could see it even there. Like so many people were getting on like Ahmed Best for playing Jar Jar and stuff like that. He happened to be there, and people were upset with him and mad at him. It's like, come on, man. It's like this show. And even Lucas himself came out and said, these movies weren't meant for your age. They're not meant for you. These are meant for the kids that you were when Star Wars first came out. So yeah, that's a great point. It's a great point. I love that. So yeah, and I love that. As soon as I saw the name, I'm like, that dude's got to be Star Wars.
Yeah,
man, I love it. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. So, and I like the series stuff. I like the Mandalorian. I thought it was really good.
It was great.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I loved Ahsoka. I don't know if you saw the Ahsoka series that just the newest one that just came out.
I did, yeah.
Really, really excited about. I'm hoping they make that into a modern version of the book, The Heir to the Empire series. It kind of looks like that's. Yeah, dude. Did you read them?
The Timothy Zahn ones, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are great.
That's kind of what I'm hoping that they do with it. It kind of seems like they might be going that direction with it. So just a different cast, obviously, because they can't use the original. I mean, they can if they want to use that deep fake stuff, I guess. But
they're slightly different characters in those books too. Like,
they are.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah.
Great books. They were. Without, I mean, we had nothing else. The movies ended, and then that was it. All you got were the novels, and they were spectacular. Yeah, I absolutely love that. So. All right. Well, we're here to talk about Marvel. The first thing I want to ask you about with Snap is now you were, I mean, obviously you do your own content and stuff like that, but you were with the thing called the Snappening, yes?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. Where did were you one of the people who created that, or did you just get in on it a little bit, or how did that go?
No. So long story short, Mike, the guy that mainly hosted it, my co-host, whatever you want to call him, he was a producer for like G4 and Food Network and stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he had an idea to make like a high quality gaming production. And he just so happened to like Marvel Snap. And when I first started on YouTube, I maybe had like 400 subscribers on YouTube. And he just emailed me one day and was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. And you seem like you're good in front of the camera. Would you like to do it with me? I was like, yeah, obviously. When he told me his credentials and the stuff he's worked on in the past, I was like, why would I say no to this? Of course, dude. You were a producer on one of my favorite channels of all time.
G4, yes.
Yeah. Yes. And so yeah, we wrote, and everything you see is custom. Like the music was custom, wow. the logos, everything was done beforehand. So we worked on it for 6 months before the first thing ever aired.
Oh, and man. Okay.
Yeah, and that's how that started, basically, though.
Okay. No, that's cool, man. I loved it. I thought it was great. Thanks. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes you think with stuff that's humorous like that, you think that sometimes it just, I don't know whether people just don't get it, and it just sails over their heads and stuff like that leads to them like, whatever. I'm not getting the humor, but I thought it was great. And I think, look, everybody needs that kind of stuff today, in my opinion. People need to laugh. And it's just they really do, and it's just a great thing. But I absolutely loved it. But I watched him. No problem. I watched the gentleman who created it his name is
Mike. He goes by Monroe Beeler online. I don't know why.
I watched his last video and it was sad. I'm like, oh, this sucks, man. But YouTube is a tough place, dude. It really is. It's a tough medium.
Yeah, that was the main problem, actually, is like I said, from where Mike comes from, he wasn't ready for what YouTube actually is. He thought he could make something that was high quality, and it was, and just get big names to be on the show, and boom, you would get views. Yep. And I warned him. I was like, oh, it's a grind. It took me like, a year to get to 2,000 subs.
Oh yeah.
And 6 months for anyone to watch me at all. So,
yep.
And to be fair to him, though, he has like a high paying editing job doing the things he does.
Yeah.
So he took a swing at it. He spent 6 months or so doing it and not paying himself, basically, because he did that full time. And then I think it just came to a point where he's like, I got to pay mortgage. I can't do this anymore.
Yep.
We haven't hit the marks I wanted to hit, so I have to end it. It's fine with me.
Yeah, yeah. Now YouTube's tough. I've had a
Yeah.
channel that I've done since COVID. A friend of mine and I decided to start. We do a wrestling podcast, and we're still doing it.
I saw your email. I was
They
like, what
just
the
say,
hell?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's like, and we still do it, but we never got that. But as we're coming up on 4K, I think subs now. We've been doing it for 4 years. So, but again, it's so hard to fight with that. The algorithms and everything on YouTube is a constant struggle and a battle. So, yeah, I could see that. But yeah, no, I wanted to commend you on that because I thought it
Thanks.
was really good and it was definitely something different than you would normally see out there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, maybe it was a little too different, but yeah.
I Someone's got to be a pioneer, right? That's how all the good
Sure.
stuff starts, man. You never know. You never know. Well, listen, I want to talk to you a little bit. Obviously, today we got a new card. We got Corvus Glaive that came out today. I don't know if you've had any
Yeah.
time to play around with it at all.
Couple hours, yeah.
Um, okay. What do you think of it? I mean, I got to play it in. I just made a basic discard deck. Nothing with Apocalypse and stuff like that. Nothing real big. And I wanted to talk to you about HELA because I see that it made its way into HELA, and I'm like, oh man, as if it needed help. But yeah, what do you think of Corvus? I mean, I don't know the experiences I had with it. It seemed to be, and even in just the regular discard deck with Swarm and Morbius and all that kind of stuff, it seems like kind of a pretty powerful card. In fact, a little bit maybe more than I thought maybe it would be, but I don't know. If you, of course, you had to draw it on curve and stuff. If you didn't get it,
Yeah.
it's kind of nothing. But if you get it early enough, now there's RNG involved. You can lose cards that you need very easily sometimes. But I don't know. I thought it was maybe not a top tier card, but I think it was just better than I thought it might have been.
I don't it's I don't think I don't so what I viewed it as was just a Hell Cow upgrade. Anywhere
Okay.
you were where you would like think about playing Hell Cow, you just play Corvus instead. And the
Yep.
energy is sort of a bonus. Aside from that, I wasn't really expecting much. And to me, that's exactly what it is. I think the only thing where I was impressed by it was I played a Sandman Hella deck, and
Mm-hmm.
it seemed stupid, but really what it ends up being is Corvus is your backup or primary Electro, and Hela turns into your secondary Doctor Doom, basically.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
like, instead of putting Doom bots on the board, you're putting whatever you discarded with Corvus. And if you end up discarding Hela, oh well, you're still a Sandman ramp deck. Um,
Gotcha.
but as far as in the regular Apocalypse discard things, I wasn't blown away. It wasn't bad at all either, though. It's just a Hellcow sub, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, the Sandman one's the one I've been seeing played. I
Yeah.
think I was watching Dara, and I think Dara was playing a similar deck to that, using the ramp. I love ramp. I've played ramp for. I mean, I'm a big Galactus fan, so I played a
Okay.
lot of ramp. So I kind of dig that. But yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. And is now I got to talk to you about Hela.
Sure.
Let's talk about Hela because
Good.
I'm of the opinion that Hela is. Well, here's one of the things. I think it's a little too strong. I think you're seeing it played a lot, where they kind of look at things, from that standpoint. But also, it seems to me now you can, I know you play it and probably much more than I have ever done. It seems to me as if it's uncounterable. And also where you can bluff snap it very, very easily to get people to leave. Now, that can be good, that can be bad. But if you're sitting there as an opponent playing them, and then you see, right off the bat, you're seeing the Black Cat get discarded, or you're seeing the Blade come out and they're discarding something big, you automatically know, all right, it's Hela. It's very easy to telegraph. But what you're not knowing is, do they have the card in their hand? And that's the big thing. And that's where you got to take a chance. And I just know from my own personal experience, if I stay in and I take that chance, 9 times out of 10, they have it and I lose. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, so I want to hear from you. Like, looking at it from that standpoint, what do you think of it as far as it being strong? And also, for someone trying to counter it, how do you even really do it? Because they pull that hell out and all those cards come down. A Shang-Chi is not going to get rid of everything, so it's like, yeah. So, but yeah, well, I'm curious. Do you know what your opinion is on it?
So the thing with Hela is, first of all, I'll say I don't think Hela is the actual problem. I think it's lockjaw because
Okay.
without lockjaw, HELA isn't nearly as consistent, which then solves that whole you can't counter it issue, because usually HELA loses to itself. And that's
Mm,
why historically it's never been top tier, because at best it's a 55% deck that just folds with its own cards. You don't even like care what the opponent's doing. It'll just lose to itself. And the reason it's so good now is basically, so I'm going to brag a little bit, but about 6 months ago, I made a video where I suggested that HELA is not a combo card. People should stop playing with MODOK and Invisible Woman, and they should play it with Lockjaw. And I put that video about 6 months ago. I did another one a couple months ago, and it's just now over the past month that month or two, I guess, people started putting Lockjaw in their HELA decks. And instead of playing it as a combo deck, which would lose to itself, because let's face it, it wasn't a good deck, now it's almost like a ramp deck that has HELA as a finisher. And that's because of Lockjaw. It's not because of HELA. So yes, you're right. It's not counterable per se. There are things you can do to make it less consistent, i.e. Darkhawk type stuff. But to the actual numbers of HELA and how popular it is, just as an example, untapped.gg, right now it's showing, so pull 3 complete, player rank 100 plus. It's at a 52% win rate with a 5% popularity.
okay.
That is not astounding numbers.
No, you're right.
I'm not saying like playing against it feels good. Of course it feels awful whenever someone blades into an Infinite on turn 1 and you're like, great, I can't really do anything about this.
Yep.
But strictly speaking, like if we just look at the actual stats, it's not any worse than Loki ever was. It's not any worse than like Silky Smooth ever was. It's not any worse than Thanos Lockdown ever was. It's actually much worse than those numbers. So maybe this goes to my attitude on Star Wars and everything, but it doesn't bother me in the slightest. I do get what you're saying, but I think that's more of a feelings thing than it is an actual statistical numbers thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and I mean, I guess it's going to be up to every individual that plays the game. Really, if you end up getting beat by a certain deck over and over and over and over,
it's annoying.
You're automatically going to get annoyed with it.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll go back to when Galactus was popular and stuff like that too. You know, and I could see it. Yeah. Now I'm not talking about the Spider-Man days, because that was just obnoxious.
Yeah.
You know, you play that out and you Spider-Man them and they just can't go, and it's like, yeah, that's definitely got to change. It was just obnoxious. But then, you know, the other nerf happened and all that kind of stuff. And but the more and more people you see that end up losing to it. And I guess it goes back to the whole social media thing, where then all of a sudden the masses come out on social media and say, oh, this sucks. Something has to be done about this. This is bad and stuff like that. So, and I'll admit to you right here, I'll say it.
Okay.
I did that today. I literally did. And all I was doing, I wasn't even real. I was playing ladder, and I think I was using high Evo, which a lot of people say that's kind of obnoxious too. You know, that's another deck that's out
that's
there
because of Leech, but yeah.
Well, I don't play. I was playing the toxic one with Man.
Oh, okay.
I just love Man Thing, the character. So that's what I was. But you know, and then once Corvus came out, the next probably couple hours that I was playing over and over again, HELA, and I'm like, oh. So I see your point. Yeah, you're 100% right. Everybody's going to come up with their different opinions about things and stuff like that. But so we could go back and we could officially say that you were the culprit then. You were the one who put the lockjaw in there.
Yes, and I'm so sorry. Yeah. I guess I'll take credit for HELA being a decent deck nowadays. I will add though that no matter what metagame we're in, no matter what week it is in Marvel Snap, there will be that deck that everyone thinks is annoying and should be nerfed.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're right or wrong. It's just the threshold for like, does this actually need a nerf? I think is lower than all the other decks that actually did need nerfs. That's my only point.
Gotcha. So I'll ask you about Lockjaw. I mean, and this is, you know, Lockjaw, not with just that, but then you also had Thanos with the blob and all that kind of stuff. would that be a card you would think that you'd look into if you were second dinner to maybe do something with? And if you could, how would you change it? Because they already did mess around with that card a little bit. So other than doing like a complete rework with that at this point, I don't know how you would change the card.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the flavor on the card is great. You throw a card at it and he fetches one for you. It's
Yeah.
cute. But a lot of the decks that we've mentioned that have had problems, specifically now currently it's Thanos, Lockjaw, and HELA, and I
Yep.
think the culprit is Lockjaw. But how to fix it, I honestly have no idea. I'm not a game designer.
Yeah.
I think if they tweak the numbers, like make it a 4-drop, it kind of kills the card. If that's good or bad, I don't know, but that's what that would do. I think the Lockjaw and a couple of cards like Lockjaw, they've kind of put themselves in a corner where it's like they kill it or they let stuff like what's going on now happen and then take a long time to actually rework it, which then makes people angry because they haven't changed it yet, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as how to fix Lockjaw, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I was just curious because if you're trying to think about that, I don't really know either, to be honest. It's like, what do you do? I've got to ask you, and I usually ask the people who come on, what's your background with games? Because I started in Magic with card games, so physical card games back in like the early. I got in like right around Unlimited series, right after beta, so we got in kind of early.
Yeah.
And when I was going around playing tournaments and stuff like that, I actually owned like a Black Lotus. I owned the Power 9, and God, do I wish I still had them.
Yeah,
because they are going for so much money. But it's funny because the people that I talk to that have done stuff like that with other games that have come to this, you see very similar things. Like with me, I was a black player, straight black discard. That's all I ever played.
Sure.
I was good at it, and that's just what I did. And I'm gravitating to that now with Snap, like I did with Galactus and Ramp and stuff like that. So I think that you see that from other gamers. So where did you kind of start as far as your card games or whatever games before that? What brought you into this?
Sure. Yeah, I'll just do a quick rundown. I played Magic when I was very young, like 8, I think was the first time I ever played. And I do remember playing with a time lock when I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Yes.
Like with no sleeve or anything. And thinking back on that, I'm like, dude, what? Like, but so I started with Magic, and I just was your typical gamer kid. But when I was about 22, there was a game called Guild Wars. I don't know if you remember it.
Yes, I do.
But it was a precursor to League of Legends, if anyone's listening doesn't know. Basically, League of Legends is a better version of Guild Wars. Anyways, I became a sponsored player on that. Okay. And it's like, oh, wow, you can actually do this for a living. And I did that for 2 years. And then I got back into Magic. And this was during Shards of Alara, the original one. Back when MTGO was a thing. I qualified for a couple of Pro Tours.
Oh, nice.
I won a couple of mocks, the monthly online championship series, and played in a bunch of GPs. But mostly I was just like a faceless grinder who just played a bunch of dailies and sold packs. So I did that for a living for a while. I transitioned to poker. And then
there you go.
Yeah. That's kind of the typical Magic player story, right? Transition into poker or out of poker.
Yeah.
And then after that, I tried starting my own business, and now I'm here, basically. I found Marvel Snap, and I was like, this is honestly the best card game, if you can even call it a card game. But I thought it was the most fun, snappy, well-designed card game I'd ever played. So I dropped Magic and pretty much all the other games, and I focused on it. And then one day I was like, I'm going to make a YouTube video. And so now I'm here. Yeah.
Now it's what well, the poker thing has to come in handy for you, because this is Snap is very, very similar, especially the snapping part of it, and it is very similar to poker. So I imagine your poker background probably. I played poker a little bit, never anything big, just with friends and stuff like that. When I was growing up, we would play over friends' houses and things like that. So, but if you're good at that, then I would imagine that helps with this game.
Yeah, it depends what kind of poker player you are, though. I was very tight, conservative.
Okay.
Tight, aggressive, I guess you could say. Like, I didn't play a hand, and when I did, I was very aggressive. And that's how I am with Snap. I rarely snap, but when I do, it's like on turn 1. You know what I mean? Yep. So I've definitely noticed that my the way I played poker is the way I play Snap, actually.
That makes sense. Yeah. And like I said, I would imagine that would have helped you. I got to this. Well, I got to this because I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I played a game that came out some years back. It was right around the time of Black Panther, when Black Panther came out in the movies. It was called Marvel Battle Lines. It came out for a little bit. It was only around for God knows, probably less than a year. And the reason I got into it was because it was a card game, but it was on like almost like a tic-tac-toe board where you'd place people on the boards and then they would attack other people and things like that. If you made a line, you'd win the game, stuff like that. But I got into it primarily because of the Marvel IP, and just because I'm a big Marvel fan. And that's why when I saw this, I'm like, oh, I need to try that. But I like this so much more because of the fact that it's good for casuals.
Yeah.
And I talk about that a lot on the show because it appeals so much to people who just like myself. I don't have a ton of time to sit down and do it. Gamer wise, I was always a big RPGer. In fact, the new Final Fantasy is coming out, which I have no clue how I'm going to spend time playing it. There's 2 Blu-ray discs and they said 120 hours. And I'm like, good God,
Sounds about right.
I have a job. I can't do that anymore. But so it's like, I love the fact that they made it that way, because you could just sit down and play for a couple minutes a game or whatever it is. If you have an hour to kill somewhere, you could do it that way. So did that appeal to you as well when it first came out?
Yeah, the fact that it was fast, and yes, absolutely everything you said. But also on the flip side, I feel like there's a very competitive, high skill, rewarding game. Like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can play it on your toilet, play it for 10 minutes, whatever, and not really think twice about it. Or you can go all in and treat it like, a player would treat Magic on the top level of play.
Yep.
And I think it fits both of those things, which is really impressive to me.
Yeah.
No other game can really say that.
No, you're right. I would agree. It is very unique. And I'm sure probably not in a too far distant future, there will be others that are going to copy it. I would almost guarantee you're going to see other games that are going to copy the style somewhere out there, whether it be, I know DC snuck in with that one recently, which was awful.
It was bad. It was just slow, clunky Hearthstone. It was bad.
It was so bad. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, but I imagine that you might see some that are going to pop up that are going to probably be similar. So
maybe, but the IP on this one is so much better than anything else I can think of. So
yeah, I would agree. Did you do you did a lot of Magic online? Did you do like in-person tournaments and stuff too?
I did a much less though than online. When I started getting competitive and when I started actually like winning tournaments was online, and I was like, oh, maybe I should do this. And so, like I said, I would play the dailies, which I don't know if you remember those, but yeah, if you went like 3-1, you would get X amount of packs back and then sell them. I would play like 4 of those at once and then sell the packs and and then use that money to go to GPs and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I was to some that were out of state back then, and I remember that. I think the biggest one I went to there was like a $10,000 or $15,000 grand prize or something to the winner. But
GPs got really big for a minute there, huh?
Yeah, they did. I remember going in there with my black deck, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna, and then you come across a blue-white. And it's like, you're toast. Like there is no way these people are playing with counter spells. They're playing with Swords to Plowshares, which is a card that would just destroy any creature that was on the
best
board.
Card ever. Yeah.
Yep. I hated it.
Especially against a black player too. You would play a discard spell and they would counter it, not only like stopping your card, but also saving their card. So they effectively like 3 for 1 to you.
Yep.
You're like, great.
Yep. They also had a card called a moat, which literally white players would play, blue-white players would have that too.
That's super old school, dude. You're talking a long time ago, yeah.
Yes, wouldn't allow creatures to attack. You could just sit there with a whole board filled with stuff, and you can't do anything. And it's like, oh god, yeah. I was. My favorite card was the rack.
Okay, obviously because you were a discard player.
Yes, when you make them discard that. Best play I ever had in Magic. I had a Black Lotus, I had a Mox Jet, I had a Dark Ritual, and I had a Mind Twist, and I Mind Twisted their entire hand away on the very, very first turn of the game. They had a draw for every. The guy just quit because what are you going to do?
You have the nerve to complain about HELA nowadays. How
dare you, right? Sir? Yeah, I know. See, you're right. I should think back to those days. Like, remember what you did back in the day?
Yeah, you ruined kids. Yeah, you're in the tournament ruin people's not just days, but probably the whole week.
You're probably right. Yeah, that's probably a good point. That's a good point. Actually, I should remember that when somebody makes me mad and beats me with hell. I should think back to that day. No, you're right.
Yeah,
That's
I
a great
deserve it.
point. It's my punishment for doing that back then.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love it. All right. So I'm going to get into, let's see, we've got, well, there's your little portrait there. I wanted to tell people where you're, we'll have you tell them what you do. Yeah, shout out now. Why not? Tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. It's
obviously your Twitter's up there, but your YouTube as well.
Yeah, it's just Nerfherder MS on Twitter and YouTube. I rarely stream on Twitch, but I do stream on YouTube. But yeah, Nerfherder MS, all one word, YouTube and Twitch.
Nice, awesome. Now, do you stream your gameplay and stuff too?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. How long do you do it? Just out of curiosity.
I honestly, I'm going to be honest, I don't really like streaming, but when I do, it's 2 or 3 hours at the very most.
Couple hours.
It wears me out.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine it would. I often wonder the people who like sit there and go for 4 or 5 seconds. Well, I mean, I'm seeing Binks do marathons.
Yeah, it's because he's an absolute psycho.
Oh my god, dude. It's like it's a 24-hour marathon. I had him on the one day watching. I love his I like his content. It makes me laugh. I love the song he's got and all that kind of stuff. I'm here sitting giggling, and my wife's like, "What the hell are you laughing at?" And it's but yeah, and I'm seeing him doing 24 hours. I'm like, oh my god, dude. You're right. He is a psycho. You are correct. I want to talk about this a little bit. So we got this. They called it what was it? An unbalanced patch? Imbalance patch. Yeah. And this just kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't know it was coming, and I opened up the game and I saw this. This is the Valentine's Week 2024. They're called Power Couples. And you can see up there Captain America, Agent 13, Gambit and Rogue, Invisible Woman, Mr. Fantastic, She-Hulk and Daredevil, Angela Sarah, Black Panther, Nakia, Iron Man Rescue, Spider-Man and Ghost Spider, and then Gamora, Star-Lord, and Scarlet Witch Vision. So what did you think? I mean, I thought it was kind of cool. You're using cards that you really never touched before. I mean, Captain America doesn't see any play, which is a shame. He's a great character in the MCU, but doesn't see much play. Same thing with like a Mr. Fantastic, unless you're playing like a Spectrum deck. He doesn't see very much play either. Angela's not played now very much anymore. Nakia really not much either. Rescue really never. And then, Miles gets played every now and then. Same thing with the Guardians here and there, and Vision's played quite a bit. But what did you make of this? And what I wanted to ask is, if they just, when I first saw this, it brought back memories of Magic for me, because Magic would play cards off of other cards. So sometimes you would get bonuses for playing specific cards or races and stuff like that. Yeah. So I was like, all right, this is kind of cool. Maybe I kind of looked at this as being, maybe this was some sort of test to kind of see if this would work for people, or if they play different decks with the cards and stuff like that. So how did you look at this? You look at this like, it's just kind of a one-time deal, or do you think that this is something they could do down the road to make the game a little better?
So I did enjoy it. I played around with like, anyways, I played around with some stupid like 4 different couples decks.
Yeah,
and they were all right, but overall I think it was great. I think they should do things like this instead of hot locations, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Oh god. Okay. Yes.
But to answer your question, do I think it was them testing anything? Actually, no, it wasn't. I'm in the creator program, and I don't want to say anything other than people brought this up, and the devs were like, no, this is not any sort of like testing implementation of anything in the future. It's just something they thought was cute, and so they did it.
Okay. All right. Kind of cool though. Yeah. No. I the comparisons and stuff like that. I absolutely love that. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it too. I had one of those decks too, where you had just a whole bunch of mixed couples in the deck and stuff like that. Everyone was going around and playing. Yeah. But yeah, it was fun. I like to see it. And of course we got the, what was the other thing? We got the carnival, we got the carnival event and stuff like that. I remember that when they were doing that back in the day, and you had no idea what the hell it was. You're looking at the screen and you're like, what is this? And you're
I'm like, getting some for free. All right.
Yeah. Really? Like, well, I don't know what this is. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? But I mean, any little thing that they do like this makes the game that much more interesting, and makes it a little more fun, I think, in different ways. But are there any cards on this list in particular and I mentioned Captain America. Any cards in this list that you think now, well, I guess we'll go into Cap and some of the other ones that are the pool one cards, right? And I get it. They talk about that all the time. People ask them, well, hey, why not buff these cards? And they say, well, listen, they're meant for newer players. And totally get it. They don't want those to get out of balance and stuff like that when they're in tier one. I was kind of thinking, and I don't know if this will ever come to pass because they make variants, of course, but in the MCU, you have there's a gazillion versions of some of these characters, and not just like Cap. You had Bucky Cap, you had just Ultimate Captain America. You have all these different. Like, I wonder if at some point they could look at the comics and say, all right, we're going to do an Ultimate comic series for Snap at some point. So we're going to come out with an Ultimate Captain America. We're going to come out with an Ultimate Spider-Man. We're going to come out and we're going to change them a little bit. And have kind of the same cards, but a different version of those cards. And like I said, I don't know if it'll ever happen because they've got the variants and they could just make them variants and of the actual main card. But what do you think about, like, looking at some of the more iconic heroes? So your Captain America, your the Avengers specifically. I know I heard somebody talking about maybe making Nick Fury interact a little bit with some of the Avengers in a way kind of like this. What do you make of something like that? Like, is that something you'd like to see come to pass in the game, or do you think it's just they're kind of stuck there because they're just original cards, you can't really change them?
Yeah, so I think it would be cool if they did some sort of like, the X-Men work better together. That would, of course, that would be neat, but I don't think they're thinking about that. Like, from their point of view, I think they're just going, listen, we have another like 1,200 different Marvel characters we can put out. Let's just get through the characters before we start like making variations on the same characters we already have.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, it would be cool if they did stuff like this, however they implement it, whatever, different teams do different things together.
Yep.
Of course, why wouldn't that be cool? But in reality, I don't think they would ever do it past some sort of like temporary thing like we're seeing right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could see that. It'd be a little hard, I think, to do it, especially like you said, or like you were talking about and mentioned earlier about, the fact that some of these cards are just, in those early series and they can't mess around with that very much. So, wanted to ask you, and obviously, you're in the creator program, so I know you can't talk about, certain things, and I wouldn't ask you to, but I want to ask your opinion. The survival of a game, and I think that's obviously in everybody's best interest that plays it, because we love the game and we want to see it last for a long time. What do you think about the economics of the game overall? Like, now that they've added the other card every month, and now we're getting the 2 cards at the beginning of the month instead of how we had it before. I know there's been a lot of talk about now that people aren't going to be able to see the spotlight caches and stuff going forward anymore, which to me, that wasn't a big deal. Data mines or not, I couldn't care less if I see cards. I didn't care about that. Coming from Magic, the same thing. You're opening packs. And even back then, back in the day of before the socials and before all that stuff, we didn't even see set previews. We didn't know what was coming out in those boxes. Now you see the cards before they come out. But what do you think overall of like kind of like a little state of the game? I tend to talk about that when people come on the show. Where do you think, do you think they're in a good place? I know that some of the previous guests I've had on will talk about changing to the early game. So maybe changing pool 3 up a little bit, giving access to the cards a little quicker. But what are your thoughts on kind of the economy of Snap?
Yeah, if I were to actually change anything in the economy, I think you just said it basically, is just make it easier for new players to catch up faster. That's the only thing I would actually want them to do. Because as far as the actual economy of Marvel Snap goes, listen, you're an MTG refugee. You know how much it costs to play that game.
Oh, yeah.
and how long you had to wait for a meta to change. Sometimes it's 2 years before anything meaningful changes.
Yes.
So when I see people say Snap is pay to win, I don't mean to downplay someone's feelings or opinions, but I think you're insane if you think Snap is pay to win. I'm going to be honest. That it's just what I think, but maybe that's strictly because I played a game that was so expensive before this one. So maybe I have the warped perception, but I think $10 a month is next to nothing. And of course, there's some people who can't afford that, but It's just, I don't think Snap's pay to win. I think the economic model they have is fine. I mean, I play a lot, but I don't spend more than $10 a month, really. Maybe I'll buy like a $10 bundle once every other month, but that's it. And I'm almost collection complete, and I can make content for the game. I will say, yes, I play more than the regular person. So that's what I think is the problem with Marvel Snap, is the time investment.
Yes.
And you have to play a lot to be able to keep up. I don't think it's a money investment thing. Marvel Snap is not pay to win. You don't. It's a time investment thing. So what they should do, if anything, is just make it to where players who started 3 months ago can catch up to someone like me after a couple of months. Because I can see people like starting up now and then having to get like full Series 4 complete. That's going to take them a half a year, like minimum, playing 5 hours a day.
Yep.
That's insane. So they should definitely help out new players. Maybe switch up, half a pull 3 goes into pull 2, half a pull 2 goes into pull 1, something like that. But as far as like the actual costs of the game, I think it's great. It's great, and people need to chill out.
I agree with you. The other thing I like what you said there was the timing, the time to set aside part of it too. And I have people will ask me, and the little group of people who listen to my show will come on and ask me about it, and they'll be like, and listen, I come right out and say it. I've never hit infinite. Never. I've been playing since maybe 2 months after the start of the game. I've never hit it. The closest I got was 99 once. And I went on one of those losing tears when you get to 99, and I literally lost back down to 83 from there. And I'm like, nope. But when I looked at it, it was my fault, because I should have stopped when I lost a couple of games. Just be like, I'm putting this away. And I should have just come back to it. But nope, I was determined. I'm like, no, I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to lose. And you're going to lose. That's just any game
that's
that
when you lose the most.
Yes. It was just stupid to do. But and what I tell a lot of the people that I talk to is, sometimes they get to watch, and I know when I first started playing, I was watching a lot of content creators, because I wanted to see, look, these guys are good at what they do. They play the game a lot. So I'm kind of looking at how they play and some of the deck types they play. But I found myself falling into the trap a little bit as well. And I'm sure other people that watch them do too, is that you have to remember, number one, most of them, if not all, are infinite. So they're going to start at 70 when they start the season. Instead of where someone else could be starting at 30, 40, 50, and making a much bigger climb. The other thing too is that when they start the season, most of them will have a stream where they might play 4 or 5 hours to get to infinite straight. So that's where I think people have to just remember that. And I myself had to think of that too when I was starting. Like, all right, you start to get a little down on yourself, thinking you really want to get there, and then you don't. But then you think, you have to stop and say, hey, I only play this game maybe an hour a day, or maybe, a half hour here and a half hour there, and that's all I get. Whereas the people who I'm watching play that are hitting it constantly, they just have a heck of a lot more time. So I think that's really interesting. And expound on that a little bit, but because I like that. And I like to tell the listeners that they're kind of like the casual people. They don't have all that time to play. So maybe, you can't really look at infinite necessarily as a goal that you're going to make every month if you don't have that time to do it.
Right. Yeah. If you want to keep up with a content creator, you either got to play 2 hours a day and be very good, or play like 4 or 5 hours a day and be like a 51% player. So if you're ever bummed out you didn't get infinite, just keep this in mind. Only 5% of people do. And I think the last time I checked, there was like, it went up to like 70 something thousand, or maybe 100,000 in the infinite rankings. And there's millions of people who play this game.
There are.
So if you're above 90, you're still in the top 15% of players. So good for you. Stop feeling down. And and if you look at content creators and say like, oh, well, I wish I had those cards that he's playing, just keep in mind, once again, that they've spent the last year playing the game 5 hours a day, and it's probably unhealthy for you to try to achieve their collection level or whatever. But I still think you can have fun with the game regardless. And if you really want to get up to, like, if you're good at the game and you really want to get on the same level as, say, like, Jeff Hoogland or me or whatever, just 4 hours a day is enough, and you don't really need to spend money. So you can do it, but you just have to practice. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it, man. I absolutely love it. There are certain things to do in this game that you kind of have to know or get better with. I mean, we talked about it earlier, with you with the poker background and snapping and stuff like that. That's such a big key to the game. If you don't get that down, and it really is. That's where I find myself. I'm like, you had mentioned you're talking about being a conservative, like a conservative with the snaps, unless you really know you got something good, then you're snapping right off the bat.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. And most of the time I find myself waiting it out. I'll wait to see if the other player sometimes snaps first. And then and it's gotta be like almost like a confidence thing where your deck, and like I said earlier, when I was playing those ramp decks, I know what I've got. And if I have stuff that I know that isn't going to get me there, I'm like, I'm out, because there's just no way I'm going to do it. Yeah. But I think a lot of times, a lot of people, me included, you will stick around because you're like, I'm going to pull something out of the hat.
That's the biggest problem with players in Marvel Snap, of like not getting infinite or just whatever. You don't think you're improving. It's all about what Joe just said right there is, most games don't encourage you to leave. Marvel Snap does. And you have to sort of take it on the chin and get used to it, that sometimes leaving is the correct thing to do, even if you're like, no, I could win it if I draw this one card, blah blah blah. It's like, no, unless you have an above 50% chance of hitting that play line that you have in your head, just leave the game. You're gonna win long term.
Yep. That's such a hard thing to get past.
It's very hard.
It really is. And like you mentioned, this is really the first game I've ever played that was like that encourages you to retreat. Because you always are in it to win it. And that's the attitude that everybody has. No matter what kind of a game you play, you're looking to win. I don't care if whatever kind of video game it is. There's very, very seldom ever that they made them, even back in my day with the old, Ataris and video games and stuff like that. You're in it to win. And when you have to get in and you have to get that mentality, like, all right, I know I can't win this. I shouldn't stick around. And yet you are. And then that's when you're dropping the 8 cube matches. So
you have that burnt in, because Magic and Hearthstone also encourage you to play to your outs. So even if you have a 5% chance of winning the game, you're encouraged to take weird choices and weird play lines that are suboptimal, but technically will get you that long shot win on the last turn of the game or whatever. And encourage you to play to that 5-7% chance of winning. In Marvel Snap, you're discouraged from playing that 7% chance. You're encouraged to actually just leave when you only have a 40% chance of winning. And it's a whole new skill you got to learn.
Yeah, for sure. I got to ask you about deck building, because for me, again, back from my Magic days, I could remember having binders. And, this is when my wife and I were first probably dating, not even married at the time, but I'd have my cards spread out all over our apartment floor. And I'm sitting there just going through all the different colors. Now, for me, I narrowed it down easier because it was always black stuff. But every time a new set would come out, I'd have to go through all the black cards and be like, okay, does this one fit in my deck now? Does this one do better than this one? So I made it a little easier for myself, but I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I really did. I just love to just go through everything and kind of test things and stuff like that. So are you, I know a lot of people, myself included, when I first started playing this game, they're net deckers. They will look to see what the best decks are. They grab that deck and then they just play it. And then I don't know, and I got to see myself too from a firsthand perspective, the first few months that I was doing that, it's like, they could be great decks for whoever has them. And a lot of times, again, you're seeing somebody play it online or something like that. They're having a lot of success with it, but that does not necessarily equate to the fact that you will either, because you're a different player.
Exactly.
So So I want to ask you about that. So do you end up doing a lot of your own builds? And it's hard with Snap because you don't have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cards like Magic did. It's a very, it's a limited thing, but I would imagine making your own deck, you'll find, a little card here and a little card there could end up being something that someone hasn't necessarily seen before and can lead you to some more wins. So are you a deck builder? Do you build your own?
I do. I'll just say that most people, everyone has a pet card, and I don't want to discourage brewing your own decks, because every deck that has ever been the best deck in a game, no matter what game it is, someone just put that together, and it was
Yeah.
stupid and bad at first, but then they refined it over X amount of time, and
Yep.
then that deck became the best deck in the game. So always brew, even if you think it's a dumb idea, try stuff out. But as far as how I actually go about it in Marvel Snap is here's a hack for deck building in Marvel Snap. You take something that's meta, and then you just play with it, or just take one or two cards that you think aren't essential to the deck and put in, let's say, some stupid stuff that people don't use. Like this is an example off the top of my head, but like
Yep.
Uatu and Cerebro, just stuff like that. You take a Cerebro deck and go, you know what, I want to try Uatu here and Daredevil because they both give me information and they also have 2 power. And you can take a stock Cerebro list that people know and think is good, and then put a little twist on it, and now it's your Cerebro deck. I think that's the best way to deck build in Marvel Snap, and you can keep going with that until the whole deck doesn't look anything like it did when you originally net decked it or whatever. So that's a great way to deck build. And then the other thing I would suggest for people when building decks is when you try out a deck, no matter what it is, like HELA, for example, this is a great example. We were talking about how HELA loses to itself, as the old HELA builds with MODOK weren't good because they were inconsistent. Well, how do you solve that? Well, look for cards in the game that you think might make the deck more consistent, and then just build on top of that and iterate over and over until you have something that, as you can see now, becomes a meta deck that everyone plays.
Yep. It's got to be a kind of cool feeling too, right? When you come up with something like that, and then all of a sudden it hits, and then it's out there, and then everybody's playing it all of a sudden, and it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my little addition to the and I was doing it back in the day with the Galactus stuff. I think, in fact, at one point I had Ghost in my Galactus deck, thinking like that might help me somehow. Yeah, it was a big failure.
Okay, I was like, how does that help?
Yeah, that doesn't help at all. But I was, every time a card would come out, I'm like, all right, what can I put in here that's going to help this and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's kind of a thing that people don't do so much. And oftentimes they do rely on, well, hey, this guy's playing this and he's doing so well with it. There's no way I can lose if I play it. And it's like,
that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Totally
yeah. And if it works for you, hey, that's great. Yeah. That's absolutely great.
The only thing, the earlier you were saying like every player is different.
Yep.
So even if you do net deck and say you try a deck out and it's just not working out for you, well, you know what kind of player you are. So if you're good with a specific type of strategy, try putting your own little twist on that net deck, and you'll probably do better with it, even though it's objectively not correct or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a Sarah control deck where you see Enchantress and Miss Marvel in the same deck. And like for me, I'm like, I don't want to do that because what if I have to Enchantress the middle lane?
Yes.
Well, just change up the little deck, change up the deck a little bit and put Rogue in instead of Enchantress. And now you have the same deck, but more suited to how you like to play, and you'll get better results.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely a great point. And it's one of the reasons why, well, the high Evo deck that I'm playing now, I just shoved Man-Thing into the deck, and I was like, Man-Thing seems like he's better now, and Luke Cage is back, so I put him and Luke Cage in the deck, and I'm having fun with it, and it's actually doing pretty well. I was actually surprised. I didn't know that it would work out well, but yeah, you're right. It's a good feeling, and it brought me back to the days of Magic where you had to do that. You had to create your own decks. That was how it was.
Back when the Wizard magazine was the only thing we had to look at. Yeah,
I still have every copy of that magazine. I think that I ever bought. They're somewhere in a box, stowed away someplace. But yes, the Wizard mag. Oh God,
right on.
I remember those well. I think the worst play, I have to laugh because it brings back a lot of memories. I think the worst play I ever had in a Magic game, I had a card in my deck called a Chaos Orb.
Yeah, I know.
The Chaos Orb was the one where you flipped it up in the air, and if it landed on any cards on your opponent's side of the table, those cards were taken out of the game.
Right.
Well, I'm all ready to go. I have this card in my hand. I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. This guy's got like 5 different cards in the thing. I flip it. It literally goes up into the air and hits my own cards. I'm like, oh my God. And okay, I wiped out my whole board. I'm like, are you kidding me?
You're like, you know what? I'm just going to get up now. You just leave your deck on the table and just walk off.
My very first game of Magic, I went to very first tournament that we went to. And I sat down across from my opponent, and I'm even back then, I had the black cards from the Unlimited series. So there I am sitting with a Lord of the Pit in my deck. One of the worst cards in the black series.
The vanilla 6/6 for like 7 mana, right?
Yes, horrible. And I had, all these cool black. Well, here he comes. He plays, he's playing red green. So he puts down a card, puts down another card. He goes, okay, I'm going to play Channel and I'm going to play Fireball and you're dead.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Channel
what?
Fireball. Yeah, it's classic.
I'm like, what? And I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't right. I'm like, I didn't even play 2 cards. Nope, you're dead. I'm like, oh my God.
That's magic for you.
Dude, it was
you don't even get to
bad.
play, you just lose.
You just lose. It was to see you. Yeah. You put 1 card. I think I put a land out. I had 1 land out and that was it. Nope, you're done. I'm like, oh my God, dude. It was so bad. But yeah, man, God bless all those banned and restricted cards from back in the day.
Yeah,
there's a reason why they were. A lot of them were really, really nasty cards. But
yeah, and if you're upset by Marvel Snap patches or OTAs, just keep in mind stuff like Joe's talking about would take a year for them to fix it.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Well, that was the reason why we were playing for as long as we did with some of the decks we did, because you're right. They just never took them out.
Yeah.
And I mean, people were playing with the Power 9 and playing with the, those high powered cards in almost everyone's decks until they finally restricted or banned a lot of them. And it was like, and then at that time we were all upset that they did because we've been playing with them for so long.
Yeah.
But you don't realize not everybody's going to have these cards anymore. They're old now, and it's like they're definitely overpowered cards. But yeah, you're right. It's people should be happy for what you got, that they do adjust things on the fly, because that didn't used to be the case. Yeah. Love that. All right. I started a new game, and I have to say, I took this from the guys from the Kid Snap. They cracked me up, man. I love those guys, and they're doing that guess the deck on their streams. I don't know if you got
AI art.
With the art and stuff like that. I think that's hilarious. So I'm like, you know what? I got to start something similar, and I had them debut this for me. So I am going to have my 2nd edition here of Guess the Pixel with Nerfherder. So I thought, you know what? Everybody hates pixels. Let's do something fun with them, because, people normally just, now there's albums for them. So people, I think, are starting to like them a little bit better. They can actually get things for having pixels. Maybe not.
These things are terrible.
They're still bad. I will say this. The Jubilee one, pretty awesome. I do love the Jubilee, man. I think that brings me back to days of like early Final Fantasy games from like the 90s and stuff like that. So she's not bad, but most of them are like Galactus. When I got his, and I have all his cards, but when I got his, I'm like, dude, he looks like he got punched in the face. Like the side of his face is blown up. Looks like he has a big bumble on the side of his face. Like, it looks so bad. But
I got to preface this game with, I don't look at a pixel for more than a split second, because I will never use them or care about them. So I'm about to do horrible.
Yeah, well, that's okay. But yeah, you listen, it's I would probably do horrible at it as well. So all right, here we go.
All right.
So
oh, I know this because it glanced on the page a second ago. This is Arrow.
This is it. Yes, you are correct. Yeah, I put the other pages up before. So yeah. So for those of you who are viewing, let's see. The audio people that are listening find this very difficult, but it's basically a pair of gray and white legs and some blues and stuff on the left side and blues on the right side. But yes, it is indeed Arrow. So that's Arrow's got a strange looking face too, man. Her eyes are like up in the looking somewhere where they really shouldn't probably be looking up in the yeah, it's bad. All right. I hope I didn't go past anymore. All right. Oh, come on. Damn it.
Skip.
Gee, I wonder who that one was.
I'll look away. I'll look away and you tell me when to look for the next one.
No, I think I can I could probably get it to function this. Okay, here we go. All right, there we are. I got it.
That's Morbius.
Yes, that one's too easy. I knew when I showed it. I'm like, yeah, that was.
All right. Do I need to look away again?
He's got goofy little bats and stuff down from him, and the red, and one of the worst Marvel movies ever, by the way. I don't know if anybody saw that film.
I never sat through it.
Oh, it was not good. You're not missing anything. It was not good.
Oh,
all right. Nope. You don't actually. I figured it out.
You got it. Okay.
I got. Yeah. Here we go.
That's the Punisher.
That is the Punisher. See, you're doing really well with this, dude. For someone who never looked at pixels, man, you're doing all right.
I don't know why these are just coming to my head.
That is the Punisher, and yeah, you got all the fire around him, and he's shooting the gun, and he's got a machine gun, and the skeleton on his chest, of course. Yes,
it was the weirdly angry eyes with the gray next to his head.
Yes, he has really. He's got really bad eyebrow. Like it almost looks like he has a unibrow.
He's going like this.
Just one long eyebrow going across his face. Yes. All right. Next up.
Oh, this is Swarm.
Oh man, look at this. You're right on top of this thing. For the guy who hates pixels, he's got look at this. Yes, it is Swarm. The purple hoodie and the white eyes and I guess the little bugs and bees and stuff that are in his coat. And
I suppose that's what they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. And then in back of him, he kind of looks almost like he's in the Washington D.C. or something.
I was about to say it looks like he's standing in front of the Smithsonian.
And yeah, it does. All right. Let's see what we got. Well, we're gonna go back to this one anyway. I know you saw it, but I'm gonna put it up there anyway.
Okay.
He saw it earlier.
It's Goose.
It's Goose. It's very odd looking. Some very weird looking tendrils that are coming out.
Looks like earthworms coming out of
it. It does look like earthworms, yes, or a really bad mustache, like a really bad long Cthulhu type mustache on it.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks really bad. But yes, that is indeed Goose. See, you killed it, dude. Even though you saw two of them, you got the other ones. So you are now the grand champion of pixels.
Hey, Joe, can we time out for a second? I have to let my wife out to go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, nope. And we're back. All right. So the king of the pixels, the champion of the pixels. You know what? Back in the days, you did. You are the crowned king of the pixels. You killed the kid Snap. You beat them bad. So we'll see how long it stands. I'm gonna have to make up some sort of goofy title, maybe like a pixelated picture of the person who won.
That would be cool.
Make a pixel of you, and we'll have a pixel of Nerfherder.
I will use that as my Twitter image.
There you go. There you go. Oh man, that's fantastic. I love it. All right, let's see. I've got, we talked a little bit about Corvus Glaive. Next week, of course, we have Proxima Midnight coming out. Now, this is the bundles this week. Well, and I'll ask you this, because I know a lot of people, look to the content creators and stuff for advice on whether or not they think they should get the bundle or they should get the cards or open caches for it or stuff like that. Now, I will say I used tokens to get Corvus. I really didn't need any of the other cards in the bundles, so it's a lot, but I kind of have a decent amount of tokens, so it's this one I knew I really didn't need many of the cards. I had them all already. But what would you recommend folks out there do? Obviously, if they wanted to get Corvus Glaive, would this be a week that you would get? You'd open up the caches. I know there's pretty good cards in there.
Yeah. So basically, my suggestion here is if as far as using keys to get Corvus go, if you don't have Gladiator or X-23, absolutely go for it, because Gladiator is just a good card. Yep. And X-23, I think, is going to be a staple in Destroy forever. Yep. So if you get either one of those and you don't have them, thumbs up. And Corvus Glaive really is just the bonus to getting either Gladiator or X-23, because those are much better cards than Corvus, in my opinion. As far as tokens go, I would say if you're in the same position as Joe, if you have everything and you also have 10K tokens lying around, then sure. But overall, if you're on the fence and you're strapped for cash and you can't really afford anything more than just one card, skip Corvus Glaive.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about we have Proxima Midnight left for this season? Yes. I think she's the last card. Yeah,
cards like her are weird because it's only for one deck. You're only going to ever use that in an Apocalypse Modok type deck.
Yeah,
in my opinion. Yeah. But on the other hand, it's and I think it's going to be the X-23 of discard. Yeah, she's never not going to go in a discard deck ever again. Yeah. So if you enjoy Dracula Apocalypse decks, it's a must buy. But just keep in mind you're going to be opening and using 6K tokens for a card that goes in one single deck, and that's a little rough. But I think she's amazing, and I don't see how she's not great.
What did you think of the season overall? I mean, we only have, geez, we're already almost at the last week of the season. So, what did you think of the Black Order series season so far?
It's cool. I love the art, the
Yep.
theming and everything was super cool. And I like seasons like this season and last season where it was like nothing really broke the game, nothing was earth shattering, but they were still good. Like Cold Obsidian's a great card. You're happy if you get it. And you can play it in a lot of decks, but it didn't change the meta. You know, we're so used to stuff like Loki and Zabu and Silver
Hmm.
Surfer and and stuff like that, where it's like it absolutely warps the meta for a month, and there's a lot of OTAs over those cards. So I welcome seasons like this one and the last one, where it's just middle of the road, good, not great, not bad either.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, we got glimpses into the future, so we're seeing the what is it, Avengers versus X-Men
Yeah,
series next month. I remember reading the comics when the comics came out. I'm a big comic guy. I love and I've talked about it on my show a bunch of times. I love the comic book variants. Love the comic book the cover variants especially.
yeah,
I really I hope they continue to do that. I don't see why they wouldn't, but I absolutely love them. The Thanos one was very excited. The Galactus one, of course, too, was very excited about getting both because I own the comics.
nice.
And yeah, so it was like, to see them in the game. The Thanos one, I got so lucky. My very first split was gold. The very first one was a gold split. And the Galactus, the very first one was inked with purple crackle. And I'm like, oh
Sweet.
my God, like you can't get any better than that.
Yeah.
But I,
Crackle's the best for sure.
yeah, no doubt. I've never seen a black crackle, and I've heard. I think I was watching KM Best trying to get his Thanos on a stream, and he was just over and over again getting foil after foil after foil.
I have
But
a
he,
black crackle. It's overrated. Just hope you
is it
don't get
really?
it
Yeah,
because you can't
yeah.
see it in play. You can't see it in play at all.
That's what. Yeah, I kind of figured. Yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's supposedly the rarest one. I guess is what he was
Wow.
saying. I don't know. Yeah,
Did not know
I
that.
don't know. What so are you an MCU fan slash comic book fan? Did you grow up reading comics or any of that kind of stuff that led you to Marvel?
Yeah, I didn't grow up reading MCU as much as like the weird comics like Lady Death
Nice.
and
Yes.
Spawn.
Okay.
I don't know why my
Image.
parents let me read that when I was like 10 years old, but they
Yep.
did. And those are the two comics I was super into. I mean, of course I like the MCU, but yeah, as far as comic books themselves go, Spawn was my jam. I used to draw. I was a tattoo artist for a little bit, and I drew a Spawn when I was like 11 years old on this
Oh
big piece
wow.
of paper, and I sent it in, and they featured it like in the like viewers art in like
No kidding.
Spawn number 3 or something. I
Oh wow,
forget.
dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, super cool. So
That's really amazing, man. I got to meet Todd McFarlane actually. I went to New
cool.
York City Comic Con once. Yeah. I love Spawn too. I liked it too.
So good.
I didn't get in on it until by the time I wanted the first issue, it was way expensive back in the day. So I think I got in an issue maybe 5 or 6 or so. I went back and read them. I got the graphic novel to read it, but I never had a Spawn number 1. But yeah, I loved it. I loved his art. And
Yeah.
I think I graduated or got to that because of his art from Spider-Man. McFarlane's Spider-Man art
Yeah.
was tremendous. I know that a lot of people kind of maybe had distaste to it. They didn't like the way he drew Mary Jane and stuff like that. I was like, I always liked his art, but I got into weird books too. I loved when Image came out. I loved there was a book called The Max.
Yes, the
Where
Max was great. Yeah.
Oh my god, dude, I loved it. I read
Weird
every
cartoon
single
show, but yeah.
yes, very. They're doing a movie, and I'm like,
What?
yes. I was like, that's awesome because it was literally one of my favorite books I think that I've ever read. Yeah, but I got into it's funny because I got into some odd stuff too. There's a book called Bone. That came out back in the day too. It was about it was kind of more comic strippy than it was just these little characters that look like I don't know how you compare them to. They're these little white dudes. But yeah, that's funny though that you got. Movie wise, the MC. You watch a lot of the Marvel movies or no?
Most of them.
Okay,
But I don't rush out and see them. I wait for them when they're on TV. I'm old. I don't got
I hear
the
you.
energy to rush out anymore.
Yeah,
But when they come on Disney Plus or whatever, I watch them. So
yeah,
I think I've
yeah.
seen most of them, to be honest. I haven't seen the Marvels and the one before that.
The Marvels wasn't great. I watched it. It was like, it was okay. It wasn't horrible. It was kind of just okay. I'm ready for them to get to the whole Secret War thing. I think that's going to be
For
pretty
sure.
cool
Yeah.
when that happens. Yeah, especially now. I did see they came out with a, it was a Thanksgiving thing. They released it almost looked like an animated poster, the Fantastic Four, because they announced the Fantastic Four cast.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm really excited for that. Well, Galactus is supposed to be in it. He's
I
supposed to.
hope Galactus
So,
is good.
it better not be a cloud, dude. If the like the stupid the when he was
they have an actual person playing him apparently.
Yes,
Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem, dude. That's
yeah.
an awesome choice for his voice too, because he's really kind of creepy.
If they nail Galactus, it's going to be my favorite MCU movie solely because of that.
Agreed.
But hey, real quick, did you know that Angela was a Todd McFarlane? It was a Spawn comic book character.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
I should ask that.
Well before she was put into the Marvel universe.
Yeah, she was in number 2 of Spawn.
Yes.
When I stopped reading MCU comic books for a while, and I played Marvel Snap, and I got Angela, and I was like, "What the hell is Angela doing in a Marvel game?" I was livid, and my sister was like, "No, she's like she got brought in a long time ago." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah, that was kind of crazy that they imported a character from, because back in the day, people weren't reading the books and stuff like that. When they all split off, like when McFarlane and a whole bunch of them split off and they formed Image, they weren't getting along with Marvel at all at that point, and there was a reason why they all left. So the fact that they actually imported one of their characters over is kind of unique, because that's not something that would have ever been seen before being done. So yeah, when I saw that I ended up seeing it in a comic book, I think, for the first time. I was reading something. I might have been Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I know this from somewhere, and then of course you see the name, and the name's all written when when they put up the thought bubble, the name was written similarly to the way it was written in Image, and I'm like, this is Angela from Image. What the hell is she doing in a Marvel?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, in Image, she was like, for lack of a better term, a sociopathic angel who murdered demons and sometimes people. So I was like, what? That's an MCU character now? Like, I don't know. It's a little weird to me, but I haven't read her in the MCU, but hopefully they did her justice.
Yeah, the stuff that I've seen her in Guardians and stuff like that, she's been in a lot of Guardians comics, and she's pretty good in there. She's brutal. She's kind of brutal. So yeah, as good as far as they can, you know what I mean? Like Marvel comics, you're going to see the brutality of the. What did you see the Spawn film?
You mean the John Leguizamo one?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. I think I was like 11 when that came out.
Yeah. Did you like it?
I mean, when I was 11, yes. Yeah. And now it's sort of a bad good movie.
It's one of those guilty pleasures to watch.
For sure, yeah. What's shocking about it is the graphics of, like, you know, $100 million budget, like a computer graphics movie of that time is like something like a literal 8-year-old can do on their computer nowadays.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's wild,
dude. It's insane. A friend of mine worked on Man of Steel, special effects companies, and he keeps up with that and stuff now. And like, I was just watching last night, a friend of mine shared a video of I think it was Billy Joel's newest song that he has out, put out a video for it, and it's incredible the stuff they can do. Like they de-aged him to sing the song, so they had different like eras of Billy Joel singing this song at the piano, and I'm like, oh my god, like the stuff that they can do is insane. I mean, talking about Star Wars, going back when Luke did that scene where he came in and helped them out of that jam when they were all stuck aboard the spaceship, and you see him walking in, the X-wing comes in, you see the lightsaber, and I'm like, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
And then you see him come in, I'm like, oh my god, like this
they did it, and they did it well. Like, holy crap,
dude. Oh my god, it's a little scary good, to be honest. Like how well they can do that. Now I know that deep fake stuff was starting to be used, and some of it looked like Leia in Rogue One looked a little odd, like it. But he was telling me that their faces are the hardest things to get, and your human brain's conditioned to see a face move a certain way, and when you don't see that, and if it's computer generated, it looks weird. But I'll tell you what, it's really come a long way.
The new Indiana Jones too. If you want to see the best example of de-aging and deep fake face. The new Indiana Jones is like, you can't tell.
Yep.
Pretty much.
You're right.
You can't tell whatsoever.
You're right. I liked that movie. I thought it was pretty good. A lot of
It's
people
wild.
complained about it. I thought it was good. I liked it. But
It's fun.
yeah, that's
I
awesome.
like fun, so I like those
Yeah,
movies.
so yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it, you know, it kills me. It's supposed to all be enjoyment, right? That's what that's there for. It's entertainment,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to entertain you. But yeah, and then getting back to, so we talked about, you know, we got Avengers versus X-Men coming up.
Yeah.
Then they had another data mine of April's, right? And that
Yes.
is, it looks like that's got to be Thunderbolts. Has to be a Thunderbolt
Pretty
series.
much. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm wondering if whether or not that because the dates got pushed back on a lot of the films because of the actor strike
Mhm.
from last year. So a lot of that got moved back. And I think Thunderbolts initially was going to come out this year. So they probably had planned it that way, where it may have even coincided with the film. But I don't know. I'm pretty excited about that stuff. Like some of the cards we've seen from Avengers and X-Men, there looks like there's some cards that are really not, they're really broken looking, some of them.
Yeah.
Whether whether I know White Widow was the one that a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah, that one
Yeah,
looked ridiculous.
it does look insane. I wonder if they'll actually release that way or not, because I know a lot of people
No
see
way.
these. Yeah, they see these data mines and they get all like they're salivating, and then all of a sudden they come out and it's like, wait a minute, this
Yeah.
isn't how this was. But yeah, and I don't know. I think that's, you know, I mentioned it earlier. I don't know whether or not people, they get mad about that and the data mines and stuff like that, but it comes to me. You know what? It comes down to me as like a spoiler, almost like a spoiler for a film
Yeah.
that you get before the film. But to me, it ruins it. If you've heard something before, like a film comes out, it kind of ruins the whole thing. But I don't know. There's that whole I want to know, and that's just how people are. People are just curious about stuff
And
now.
they always change too, so what are you really missing out on?
Yeah, yeah. Very true. Very true. So, what are you looking forward to? I mean, you know, not necessarily cards, but from Marvel Snap as a whole. I mean, where do you let's just say this. Where do you see this game in a year from now? You know, and we all want, you know, we're all invested. We all want it to do well. You know, for many different reasons. You know, enjoyment hopefully is top of the list. But you know, these games sometimes, especially mobile games, and generally mobile games will sometimes come and go. They'll stay around for a few years and then they'll be gone. But where do you see Snap in, let's say, a year from now? Do you? I mean, I think we saw the roadmap. We saw some of the things they're looking into. What do you want to see happen? I mean, I'd love to see a draft mode at some point come.
Yeah, sure.
But what are some of the things you're looking forward to in Marvel Snap in the future?
I mean, as a hyper competitive player, I'm most looking forward to guilds and hopefully guilds and whatever you want to call it, clans, whatever they're calling it.
Yep.
And then after that, I would like them to do some sort of like in-game tournament hosting. That
Yeah.
would be fantastic because then that would make running tournaments much easier.
Yep.
And at that point, you wouldn't need support from Second Dinner to actually run tournaments. You could just have third party. There are third party tournaments right now, but
Yep.
they're hard to find online. Like if you Google Marvel Snap tournament, you're not going to find it. It's hard. You have to be like super involved on the Discord to find those things. So I would love an in-game tournament system that third parties can use and make tournaments much easier. As far as the game population, its strength, I think it's going to stay the same. Ben Brode is behind it, and
Yes.
the
Yeah.
dude is a legend for a reason. I
Yep.
don't see Marvel Snap dying or going anywhere. At worst, it stagnates, and if it stagnates, we still got millions of people playing. So
Yep.
I think it's in a good position. They know what they need to fix, and they fix things, and they do it in a timely manner and keep in touch with their community. So I don't see them having any reason to, you know, to fail or to do poorly in the future. I think things can only get better from where we are.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. So, yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I love the outlook. Oh, that's what I want to ask you. Have you played in any tournaments for Snap at all yet?
Not really. I've played in a couple, but they were like way back when they were hosted by
Okay.
like Community Gaming or something like that.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. I know that I think Snap Judgments is doing one, which is actually I'm doing. Did you get involved with that too?
Yeah, I'm doing that one.
Nice, yeah, me too. I figured it'd be kind of cool. I like how
Sure.
they're going about doing it and trying to get a lot of people involved. I think the enticement of that is, you know, and even for a guy like myself, I mean, imagine getting logged in with Lambie. or something,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, that's just a cool thing. You're more than likely going to lose, but it's like, yeah, hey, I just played the #1 player in the world. That's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, like
So,
for me personally, it's like you get to know these people and it's good content. So
yep,
it's a win-win.
yep, yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. Well, listen, man, I know I've got you late here. I appreciate you coming on. I
Of
love the
course.
conversation. And again, tell the guys where they can find you and
Sure.
when you do your content. And yeah, let them know where you're at.
I put out a new video every other day on YouTube. Nerfherder MS is where you can find me there. I do deck highlights, conquest decks, and card reviews, and then I do like comedic shorts. If you don't like getting made fun of, don't watch my shorts because I probably make fun of you in some way or another in the short. um, and then on Twitter, if you want to come tell me I'm stupid and ugly, you can find me at twitter.com/nerfherderms.
That's awesome. Now see, now I'm curious. The comedic shorts, I don't think I've ever seen. So what do you do? What do you do? The shorts about Snap?
I do metagame reviews.
Okay.
So I'll be like, these are the top decks in Marvel Snap this week, and I'll be like, first up, Lockdown. If you play this deck, you're the fun police, and you're probably the kind of person that called the cops on your neighbor for having a keg party. What's
Oh,
wrong
that's
with you?
great,
And
dude.
stuff like that.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to watch those. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. That's
It's
fantastic.
basically just reviewing the metagame, and then I just stereotype the person who would play that kind of deck.
That's fantastic. I love it. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check those out. That's
Right on.
tremendous. Awesome, man. Well, listen, come back anytime. I really
Of
enjoyed
course.
having you. Love talking about all the old stuff and the Star Wars stuff and everything else. And listen, guys, if you learn one thing from tonight from Nerfherder is that again, like we talked about very early in the show, it's a game, guys. It's meant to be enjoyment. You're supposed to have fun doing it, and honestly, if it's getting you to the point of where you're just not having fun, then maybe it's time to look for something else that you might get more fun out of doing with your spare time. So absolutely love that. All right, guys, that is all for tonight. This will, of course, be available on, well, you're watching on YouTube here. It will be on audio as well. I know a lot of people listen to my show on the audio podcast, and it will be available there as well in the next hour or so. So that's it for me. I will talk to you guys all in the next one. Have a great night. Stay safe. Be kind to one another. And hopefully we will see you all on the next show. Take care, everybody.
See ya.